Hello, AFL Europe watchers and listeners from all around. Thanks very much for joining us for our International Women's Day special. We're lucky enough to have Bec Goddard, the incoming Hawthorn AFLW, the inaugural coach. Thanks for joining us, Bec.
Thanks for having me.
How are you finding your time out in London? I know you just got here the other day.
Yeah, I got in a couple of days ago. It's a bit cooler than what it is in Melbourne at the moment, but I'm very much enjoying it.
Very much enjoying it. I mean, at least it's not completely flooded at the moment, like half of Australia back home is.
Oh yeah, it's there's a lot going on around the world at the moment, it seems.
There's a lot going on around the world, but at least you can sort of enjoy a little bit of a travelling again for the first time in a little while.
It is, absolutely. I haven't travelled anywhere in 2 years, so to be able to take a break before I get really stuck into footy, before I start at Hawthorn, was a great opportunity.
I can imagine it'll be nice to have a quick sort of mental break before you dive right
in
to the stress of the season. First off, before we jump into Hawthorn and what's going on with that season coming up, it's International Women's Day, so we want to talk a little bit about you. To start, you were someone who played a lot of footy as a junior. You stopped, I think, when you were around 13 because there was no women's competition at the time. Came back, played for Belconnen?
Yes, Belconnen Magpies. Yeah.
And then how long did you play for?
Look, I played for probably about 10 years, I guess. And I think I was just sort of really involved at footy just from a young age. Ran the scoreboard at my dad's games. He played for Belconnen, and then played in my brother's teams and competitions up until 13. And then when that wasn't an option anymore, I got into umpiring and became a goal umpire. But I got a bit bored of goal umpiring pretty quickly because I forgot that I was actually an umpire in the game. I actually just treated myself as a spectator. So the amount of times that a goal was kicked down the other end of the ground and I would have the players turn around and yell at me to wave your flags because I'd forgotten that that's what I had to do because I was too busy watching what was about to happen, in the rest of the game. Yeah.
You end up just sort of enjoying the show.
Yeah, that's right. And as the years went by, I ended up umpiring, in the senior men's competition in Canberra and inevitably into coaching.
Umpiring now, it's an interesting one because you were the first female umpire in the field umpire in the NEFL.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you?
I don't think I really looked at it as the first at the time. I was just always challenging myself to be the best in whatever I was doing at footy. And I had to change a lot of things about myself, and I was recovering when I really started to take umpiring seriously. I was recovering from a badly broken leg from playing football, and I had to learn how to run again, basically. When you have a sort of a horrific injury like that, there's a lot of things that don't work the same way. You don't just have the operation and then, you're right to go again. You've got to. I do know. Yeah. And I'm sure there's many watching that have had similar circumstances. Same with ACLs, it's actually, once you get it done, it's never going to feel the same way again. So for me, it was, right, okay, well, let's learn to run again, and then let's get fit, and then just see where it took me. And I found that the higher up I went in umpiring, the less abuse there was, probably the less personalised abuse as well, and the players were just there to again be the best and show off what they could to see if they could get themselves drafted in the AFL.
As someone who's played, coached, umpired, you've sort of got all perspectives of the game. But from a coach perspective, do you think the fact you used to umpire gives you a little bit more credibility when you're giving umpires stick, or do you try not to give them stick because you know how hard the job is?
Yeah, I absolutely don't give umpires stick.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah, please do. It's a hard thing. Honestly, the attention on umpires, I often find it extraordinary that people talk about umpiring decisions because we don't talk about the individual decisions of players at the level that we do what umpires' decisions are in a game. And I do think that they've got the hardest job out there, and it's really hard to retain umpires, and especially now coming out of COVID, even more so. There are less and less umpires available, so we have to treat them the best and appreciate them for how hard their jobs are.
And I think a lot of players, fans, coaches, you might not realise that without the umpires, there's no game. The whole thing's chaos.
We do forget about that, but I also find it, like, from a coaching perspective, umpiring gave me some of the best insights to the game. because you're finding yourself standing in the middle of a game, and tactically there's stuff rolling out around you and I wasn't a particularly great runner, and so the easiest way for me to run was cheating a little bit, because I started to learn what teams were doing and the way that they set up, so I wouldn't have to run as far if I knew what was about to unfold with the play. So there was a little bit of gaming to it from my perspective as well, but I got my best view of the game tactically, understanding what was going on. Kick-ins especially, you can see what's about to unfold at a kick-in, and then lay down the rest of the ground. So for any coaches out there that are looking for a tactical advantage, I would say give umpiring a go, because you can really learn a lot of things on the inside of the game.
I was going to say, I look forward to hearing about the Hawthorn film sessions when you're going through with players and you're breaking down. Just look at what the umpire's doing.
Yeah,
You see they're
cheating their running.
Play really
cheating
well.
their running, yeah.
Speaking of coaching now, you were the inaugural AFLW women's coach for Adelaide back in 2017. We all know how that season went. You won the flag, went very successfully. But coming into it, what were the expectations?
They were very low, to be honest, because, women's football in Australia, traditionally, the mighty Vics were the best.
Yeah.
It was different to men's football, where South Australian men were very competitive in that national kind of space. But in women's football, if you were from South Australia and the Northern Territory, which is where we were taking our draft talent from, we were used to getting smacked by Victorian teams by, more than 100 points every time we went to the national tournament. And so from that perspective, people thought we were going to come dead last, because we're competing against, great Victorian players that traditionally pantsed us in all forms of it. So I felt like that was a little bit of an advantage in a way, because in my head I was like, well, if we get away with the first win, then that's a pretty good start. The people of South Australia would be pretty happy with that, and if we win a couple more, that might be great too. But as it happened, we actually just kept winning.
If I recall correctly, you didn't lose that year.
No, we did lose. We lost 2 games. We lost to Brisbane at Norwood Oval by 5 points the first time we played them. And I remember walking into the rooms at the end of the game and saying to the players, "That's all right, they beat us, but I get the feeling we're going to play them again."
Yeah.
We didn't know that we were going to make a grand final, but I just had this sense, and we all had this sort of steely mindset to it that we weren't going to let that happen again, because it was so close. It was a kick in it at the end of it. And then we went up to Darwin after that and played Melbourne, and we lost that one. But again, it was not a convincing loss, I suppose. Melbourne were great and handled the heat really well, but we didn't play our best footy either. We came back, we had to beat Collingwood for the last round, and we won it, and we were into the first grand final.
Well, and I recall the granny. Was there anything that changed in between? I mean, you're talking about it's really hard to win. People say it's difficult to win back-to-back against a really good team.
Yeah.
But it's also hard to rebound from a loss when you've never beaten that side in that sort of capacity. So going into that game, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of little things, because we had the 2 consecutive losses. That week, heading into the Collingwood game, there was a public holiday in South Australia. Instead of training that night, we took the night off. Adele was in town, and a lot of the girls had tickets to Adele, and I just thought, let's just do something fresh here, just to try and freshen everyone up heading into that Collingwood game. We just gave everyone the night off. I went to the Adele concert too. Went and
can't blame you.
Yeah, can sing, and then we came back fresh into training that week, beat Collingwood into the grand final. And that week of the grand final, I was really thinking about, right, well, what do we need to change since we only lost by a goal? Do we need to just go back in with the same plan and just execute it better, or do we need to tweak something? And as luck would have it, I had Alistair Clarkson ring me that week. I was driving home from training and had this call from a number I didn't recognise, which I normally wouldn't answer. But I thought I'd better, because it's grand final week, and what if one of the girls has had an accident, or you start catastrophising. And it was this voice on the other end said, "Hey Bec, it's Clarko. I just wanted to talk to you about your defensive setup for the grand final. I've watched a few of your games, and I've got a bit of experience in grand finals," is what he said. So fair enough. That was true. He did. And yeah, we just talked through what my plan was, and we did it. We executed it, and we ended up winning the grand final by one kick. So flipped it to one kick.
Flipped it just enough.
Yeah.
Now that's obviously, as you said, I mean, it's interesting that you had no Victorian teams in that inaugural grand final. But yeah, coming into the year, low expectations with Adelaide. You win the flag. Now you're coming into the first AFLW season with Hawthorn. You're not totally new at the club because you have coached the VFLW team.
Yeah.
But what are the expectations coming into this year? Are they different? Are there things you're changing based off the experience with Adelaide? Does anything change because of your experience at Hawthorn already? What can we expect from this coming season?
Well, the first thing is I've never met a coach who doesn't like to win. And so I can't. Hopefully, never will. I absolutely can't say, oh, you know, we want to come in and make a great impression. I mean, that's a bit of bullshit if people who say that. I want to win, and I know that the players that we'll take will also want to win. It's kind of a bit of a criteria, you know. You want to have that competitive streak, so that's the first thing. But you've hit the nail on the head. The way that the competition will be different. When I came in with Adelaide, there were not very many list management rules that we had to adhere to, but now with the expansion and the last 4 teams coming in 1 year, there will be a lot of list rules, how many we can take from what age groups, other clubs, etc., etc. So I can't just go carte blanche and go and get my dream team. We'll just have to work with what we can get and hopefully be very competitive, like lay the foundations of the house and be a successful club for years to come. So that's publicly what we'll say. I won't put any wins and losses figures on it, but yeah.
Is there a little bit of a weight of expectation on your shoulders that you feel because of the success you had in that first season with the Crows?
I think, rightly or wrongly, I've always felt that my coaching is looked at a lot more closely than my male counterparts. And I think it's because there are no other women coaching. So I've always felt that little bit of added pressure that to be successful, and it's something that I really had to work on over the years to make sure that doesn't become all encompassing. That I feel that much that I can't perform and do my job the right way. Yeah. And
you're coming into this season, obviously you haven't been coaching at AFLW level since leaving the Crows.
That's right.
You went back to Canberra to focus on your police work, I believe it was, with the AFP, but you also spent time with the Canberra Capitals as an assistant coach in 2019?
Yep.
How was that?
2019 championship.
2018-19 season. You got the championship 2019. How was that experience going to a different code, a different sport, being back home in Canberra, having some time away, not from coaching but from football?
Yeah.
Focusing on the police career as well. How do you think that's benefited or changed the approach now returning?
Well, look, I think a couple of things out of that. I was still working for the AFP when I was coaching at Adelaide, so I was multitasking at that time. I would have loved to stay in Adelaide and continue to coach over there, but at that stage with the competition, there was no full-time opportunity to do that. So I think there is this sort of idea that I left coaching to focus on my career. The facts are there was just not the opportunity to stay in football. And I had a really established career and I wanted to keep going in that because that's what I could trust at the time and what had supported me, you know, my whole life, and I'd built my career and reputation in that. So yeah, I went back to Canberra. I did some Auskick for a bit. I actually got back to coaching in the NEFL with the Canberra Demons, so I wasn't completely cold out of football. And then at the same time, I had an opportunity with the Canberra Capitals as an assistant coach, and I didn't know anything about basketball. Hadn't coached basketball before. It's just a bit of a watcher, you know. Used to love to watch the game. Still love to watch the game, and it really freshened my coaching up. I was with some amazing elite athletes, Mariana Tolo, Kelsey Griffin, Kia Nurse, Leilani Mitchell, you know, Olympians in their own right. And I just felt reinvigorated about sport because I did leave Adelaide pretty sad about the fact that there wasn't that opportunity for me, and being able to do that and then, you know, keep going and come back into football ultimately really helped my coaching and where I was.
Was there always a plan to get back to the AFLW?
I think when I left, I felt like I was out. Yeah, that was it. Okay. Because I'd won a premiership at Adelaide, and I thought, that's it, I've hit the top of the mountain. Like, I don't need to prove anymore that I can coach. I've kind of done it, so the rest of it will be easy now. But the reality of it was, I felt like I was no further advanced. And so I left in a pretty sad place, thinking, I don't know if this is for me, if this is the place for women in these types of roles. It might be something else in football that I have to do if I really want to be in football.
So what's changed in that time?
I think I've done a lot of reflecting. That's a bit that has been a big piece, and I think I'd never worked in high performance sport before.
Yeah.
So it was all a learning experience. I, now have mentors, official mentors and unofficial mentors. I've built my network in the sports industry, and I know what my why is, I guess. Like some people talk about, why do you coach footy? And they say, oh, just because I love it.
Yeah.
It's got to be actually something a bit more than that. Like, yeah, but why do you love it? What is it that you actually love about it? And I go back to the memories of my family and growing up in footy and that close connection with them, the smell of grass. I can even smell the urinals at my dad's footy grounds. That's how repulsive it is. But that's the connection.
Brings you back to that place.
It brings you back to that place and the connection with what really matters. And so I think, the reflections of that and being where I am now, that's what's kept me going.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think if we jump away from footy briefly, you've had quite an interesting path to where you are now. I know you have degrees in journalism and Persian language.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've had your work with the AFP. Mm-hmm. Coached in various different codes. Those degrees you got, journalism and Persian language, what attracted you to sort of politics and journalism? Because you worked as a media advisor for the Labor government in the 90s.
Yeah.
What attracted you to that? And then I guess why have you gone down a different path?
Well, back when I was at university, there was no internet, so we're talking a long time ago to sort of stretch the memory there about what went through my head. I think I wasn't particularly good at maths and science, so I ended up heading into communications, and I realised in my first year of studying journalism that I didn't want to be a journalist. I just didn't like it. But true to my sporting ambitions, once I've started something, I had to finish it. So I thought, I'll just finish the degree. But during that degree, I had a presentation from a sergeant in police media come in and present to us. And I thought to myself, ooh, that's a career I could do. Well, you can be a police officer and do media at the same time. And so I applied to join the AFP, and 2 years later got this cold call out of the blue, would you like to come into police college? And I thought, well, we'll give it a go. By that stage, I'd graduated and was working for the ALP in Canberra, and thought, well, if I don't like it, I can always go back to the other job. And 20 years on, I've had an amazing career with the AFP. Yeah. Persian language, that was, I guess, a little sort of a side project just to keep learning and keep myself interested in the world. And in working in the AFP, I'd worked in a number of different crime types and met a lot of Iranian people, and I felt that it was going to be an advantage to be able to communicate with them a little bit better than what I was. And I'd spent a fair bit of time on Christmas Island and felt that to be able to, help some of the people that I was encountering, it will be helpful to have that language skill. So I studied that for a few years.
And was that sort of the reason why there was the affinity for the Persian language?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it could have been, I suppose, any of those languages from that part of the world. But I felt like Persian was one that really interested me. That culture, and they were great people. Yeah.
You've painted with a very broad brush. It's very interesting to see so much has gone on. And I suppose jumping back to where we are now, where we've been sporting-wise, 2021 you received a Medal of the Order of Australia for services to Aussie rules and women in sport. Yeah. Big honour, I'm sure.
Huge honour. Almost embarrassing, actually.
Talk to me about it. Why almost embarrassing?
Well, because, I just think there are so many women and so many women that have gone before me in the football world that we just never hear about. We don't hear about them enough, and I feel like it's still a difficult journey for women in our sport. But it certainly wasn't as hard for me as the ones that have already been there and done it. And so I felt a little bit embarrassed that I was the one that received such an honour. But I was also so grateful. And it's like, that's a once in a lifetime thing that's going to happen to you. And yeah, got to go to Government House towards the end of last year, and you should see the grass at Government House. Like, I wish I'd taken a football, to be honest, because I said to the Governor General at the time, we could have a really decent game here. Yeah.
And how did that go down with the Governor General?
Yeah, look, he said that it wasn't out of the realms of possibility, but we'd need to get some posts in, a few other bits and pieces. But yeah, it was a great day, and my family got to come with me, and we were just coming out of COVID in Canberra, so it was just great to enjoy the day with them.
I think you say sort of embarrassing, and obviously there's so many people, you're sort of within your right to think, like, why me, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many people I've met along the journey who would be just as entitled to something like this. But I mean, I suppose you have to recognise you've been such a trailblazer for women in coaching and in football and just across the board for quite some time. If there's anything, you spoke about how you think it is challenging for women still, but you recognise that maybe it's less challenging than for other people that came previously. Talk to us about that, how it is still challenging, but there's progress that's been made.
Yeah.
What would we like to see 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one, because I think, if we look at where we are now with the AFLW, 6 seasons ago we had 8 teams. We've now got 14. Yeah. We're about to have all 18 in. The players themselves, they're amazing athletes, and what they're doing in Australia, over the last 2 seasons with COVID, still doing their work full time. Then they've got their football part time, but we know that it's absolutely not part time. You can't just at the end of AFLW season go, oh well, that's it, I won't get back into the gym for another 6 months until pre-season starts. They just can't do that. So what they're doing is essentially unpaid work, and some of their injuries and some of the things that are happening to them, and the travel and the change of their lives very quickly, we're asking a lot of them for not much money. But pioneer life is hard, and they're making it better for players in, say, 5-10 years' time, when it is a full-time competition, and that's ultimately where we want to be, full-time. 18 rounds with 18 clubs. Why not? And being able to have those big games at the big venues, I'd love to see that too. Playing at the MCG, playing at Marvel, whatever that looks like. I don't like the ideas of curtain raisers, or I think the women's competition it's got a unique audience, and we want to be able to showcase that.
Very much the main event.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it feels like we were always at that point of, we're getting there but not quite.
But I think it's okay. We can see progress. Like we'd love to. I'd love for there to be more women coaching. In the AFLW at the moment. To me, it's 2022, and the fact that there are no women coaching in the AFLW, I don't think that's right. There are women out there that are qualified, capable, and ready to do it. And so it's about being in the industry, influencing in ways that are helpful to women, and seeing more brave leadership, overt leadership, to try and change that narrative about where women sit in the sport.
How do you think what you're doing now, coming into this upcoming season with the Hawks, and what you've done previously, is going to help? Do you think it will help facilitate more opportunity going forward? Yeah,
I hope so. Hawthorn, we've taken some overt steps. With our VFLW coaching panel now, 2 seasons in a row, we've hired all women. And now I'm not saying that's something that will happen forever, but we had to change something in the industry and give some great women the opportunity to be able to showcase their skills. Because when are they going to be ready? If we keep using those words, oh, she's good, but she's not quite ready yet. Well, when will she be?
Yeah.
We have to give them a chance.
And why not?
So we felt that at that VFLW level, that was a great opportunity to start involving them at that high performance level. And in another 5 years' time, we could have done nothing. Or in 5 years' time, we go, well, look at how many women we put through our channels, and some of them might still be there, and some of them might not be, and that's okay.
And I think we're at a point now where people could look to you as a role model, and I'm sure a lot of young women, young girls do that. But you yourself, along the journey, I'm sure had a lot of amazing women who were role models yourself. I heard back when you were younger, you got your hair cut short to look like Princess Diana.
Yep, I've always had it short hair. Thank you, Princess Di.
And so, with Princess Di, sort of as someone when you were little, you looked up to.
Yeah.
Who were some of the women along the way and along the journey that have been role models for you, that have really impacted you and still do today?
I think that was the hard thing for me in footy. There were none. There were no other women in footy that I felt like I was really on the journey with. Michelle Cowan is a very good friend of mine now. She was coaching Fremantle in the first year. So we were sort of in the competition together, but we were a bit siloed because we were competition. And it's something now that I look back at, and the two of us talk about this a lot, is that we're not doing that thing on our own anymore. Like, we're bringing women with us. Yeah. Like, we're kicking the door open and we're dragging as many women through the door with us as possible. Because if we don't do that, then nothing will change. And so there are some other great women, in the sports industry. Carrie Graf is a great role model that sort of I grew up watching in the basketball space. Yeah. Lauren Jackson, she's done some amazing things for women in sport, not just her playing career, but professionally. Some great women in basketball that I used to just love watching. Michelle Timms, I remember as a kid turning my TV on and seeing women in sport on the TV. They were the first ones, really. Well, we had no other women in sport on TV, and Timsy and Rachel Spawn, all of those girls. I mean, I'd love to say Erin Phillips, but she was a bit too young at that time. She'd hate it if I listed her in that kind of category. She's still playing and still a great at the game. But there are a few. And then, in more informally now in the sports media industry, I work with some great women now that I just learn so much off every day. You see Daisy Pearce is doing an amazing job for Channel 7 as well as playing footy still. Abby Holmes, I've got a great friendship with her now. Aside from winning a premiership together, Ab's doing some great stuff in the media space.
There's a lot. It does seem like you're sort of bringing this sort of crop through, and they're really starting to break in. And I think it's great overall. Really, it truly is. Just finally, before we finish up, I wanted to recall sort of you say you're a self-proclaimed sort of
self-confessed winning addict. Yeah.
So what's that sort of initial sporting memory that sparked that flame, that really ignited the flame that became who we are today?
Yeah, I mean, I just look back and I just think of winning as a kid, and I mean, when I look at now who I want to draft at Hawthorn, I want the player that, you want to be first to the footy club, you want to be the one that's like lifting the most in the gym, you want to be the one that gets first through the gate, you're playing computer games in your spare time and you want to beat your teammate. That's the kind of winning I think that's intrinsically in me. Like, however these little wins are.
Born and bred desire to win.
Yeah. And I even look, like, I ride my bike to work. I game it. Like, I will say hello to everybody that rides past me, and I will count how many hello backs I get. Like, on a Monday, you don't get many hello backs. On a Friday, you get a lot of hello backs. Right? But it's always that, like, okay, what's my win? How am I going to get my win today? And so it's not just about winning flags. It's about winning in everyday life and how I'm going to get that. Yeah.
Never not
winning. That's it. Yeah.
I guess it's probably the perfect makeup you want for a coach.
Exactly. You want that desire to win. How am I going to win today? My alarm clock is a round of applause. So the alarm goes off, it's a round of applause. Yeah, congratulations, you woke up and you're getting out of bed.
That's a win.
That's it. Yeah.
I can't wait until we hear the stories from Hawthorn's locker room of just, I picture a million separate little competitions going on.
That's it.
Yeah, just who can lift the most, who's the fastest,
That's it.
Who's winning your time trials. And I think it'll be interesting to see if anyone can stop you getting out amongst it as well and trying to take on all of the players.
That's it. How big is your fight to win? Yeah.
Well, you heard it there. That's a warning for the rest of the AFLW next year. We've got a very hungry coach out there ready to take on a very, very hungry club. Bec, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us for our International Women's Day coverage. Enjoy the rest of your trip and best of luck with the Hawks.
Thanks for having me, guys.